right, hello there, everybody. Welcome to the Wilds of Reality, our very first episode. My name is JD. I'll be your host from the wilds of the Rocky Mountains. With me from the waterfront of Southern California, LA, is my co-host Justin.
Hello.
He's going to be coming in over Skype because there's a long distance between us, and being in the same room is not possible to happen. So this being our first episode, just a little reference for everybody. It was just announced here a little bit ago that we lost Marvel Comics Man of the Year, and for eternity probably, Stan Lee. Sad day for everybody. But other than that, how are things going on your end, buddy?
Pretty good. Cold at night, hot during the day.
Yeah, sounds
Usual
about right.
Southern California.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a beautiful, balmy, like 20 degrees here. So, as you know, wintertime has come upon us, even though it skipped fall. But we're going to go ahead and we've got a story to start off the day with. So I'll give it over to you there, buddy, and let you tell your story, and then we'll go on and start discussion from there.
All right. Well, this is a friend of mine. He was just telling me about this stuff. This was back in the mid to late '90s. I can't remember the exact date, but they have a cabin they used to go to with friends and family up in Northern California. Way up there in the redwoods and everything like that. They usually go up there once or twice a year for about a week or two, sometimes as long as a month. But they'll go up there to hunt, hang out. They're like this is like middle of the woods, you know, BFE. But so he was telling me about this. Because they'll come across a bunch of random weird stuff here and there. But there's one time they were just out, and generally, especially if you go out hunting a lot, you'll know when something's following you. So yeah, so they were getting that feeling. Some basically was just following them through the trees. The other thing that's like, okay, well, it's a little late in the year for a bear. They're generally hibernating around here now, and things like that. And so they're thinking, okay, it might be a mountain lion or whatever like that. You're hearing like branches snapping, So they're like, okay, it can't really be a mountain lion. They're generally not that noisy. This sounds big. So they're like, okay, maybe it is a bear. Maybe it's just a late sleeper or whatnot. So anyway, they're just doing their normal trek. They usually walk around with rifles and pistols, because if they come across the deer or pheasant and whatnot, they'll shoot them. But anyway, they make it back to their cabin. Late at night, they have all their weapons strewn out because they're cleaning them and everything like that. And this is just your standard log cottage cabin. Generally, one big main room, kind of high vaulted ceilings. And so, but there was like an upper draft window he was telling me. It's about maybe 8 foot off the floor. Just airflow type deal. So he was just saying, like, it was late at night, and as they're just sitting there chatting, whatnot, they hear this loud, piercing scream, like roar type deal, coming down at them through the window. Not like up into the window, but like something was standing over the window and yelling down at them. And he says that was the quickest they ever got their weapons assembled, and they all ran out, and there was nothing outside. And he was telling me that like this roar is like what you would hear on those documentaries where Bigfoot or whatnot, Sasquatch, where you would hear this roar like 3 ridges over that would echo through the things. Is like it sounded exactly similar. And he said this generally falls in line with a lot of the weird stuff that they would see up there and a lot of the weird stuff that you hear. So yeah, nothing super special, but just a lot of the weirdness. Like can't really get that up there now because a lot of the forest has been cleared out due to the whole pot farming up there. So a lot of that area is just gone. So the cabin's still there, but you generally don't want to. It's like more you got to worry about more of the meth heads up there now and all the all the junkies instead of random stuff in the forest.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer that that's happening out there. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear this kind of stuff, and you have to wonder like, did they ever like take it to like BFRO or I know there's like a California Bigfoot hunters organization and stuff like that, but did they like talk to them about it or anything?
They might. I didn't ask him. I can expound on that later. I can talk to him, but so but no, yeah, because he said they came across like a lot of weird stuff, especially up on like because they live up in the mountains around Arrowhead and Big Bear. Of course, that area is all populated nowadays, but yeah, it's he's come across a lot of stuff. I'm pretty sure he's brought it up somewhere. I'll have to ask.
Well, and that kind of brings to that point of, back in when everything's wooded and forested and, hunters' cabins, and you hear a lot of reports for anything like Sasquatch related or even Dogman stories actually end up coming down the pipe from hunters of all things. And I personally, I think this has to do with, these guys spend a lot of time in the woods. They know what they're seeing, they know what they're not seeing. But for the most part, if you're out hunting, if you're ambush hunting, as I would refer to it as, you're sitting somewhere waiting for the animal to come down the game trail or whatever. You're not making a lot of noise, you're not moving, and everything just gets used to you being there. So you get ignored until all of a sudden something stumbles out that didn't expect you to be there.
Yeah, pretty much. Happens a lot. Like generally, these animals do have that sixth sense where they know when something's there, but I've surprised deer quite a few times actually. So it's kind of funny to watch, really.
Well, and this is the thing. Not to bash on like any of the guys that go out there and do these like expeditions, like on YouTube and stuff like that. Um, but a lot of these people walk down game trails and stuff like that. And my personal opinion is that you'll never find, a predator type animal such as a Sasquatch or anything else walking down a game trail, because predators don't generally go down the game trail. If you get off the trail and you go uphill a little bit from a trail, you're going to find what I like to term as the predator trail. It's not clearly as defined as the prey trail, the game trail, but it's a trail that all the predators that are stalking and following the predator or the prey, the deer, elk, moose, whatever, they're going to be on that trail following behind them, watching them slowly, waiting for a good spot to ambush them, which is how a lot of people end up getting attacked by mountain lions and stuff. They
Yeah.
don't look uphill because everyone always looks downhill because all the pretty cool stuff. And deer actually do the same thing. You can sneak up from behind them on the uphill side and usually get within 5 foot of a deer. So,
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to find a predator trail, it's usually about 20, 30 yards uphill or off to the side. Ghosting about almost parallel with the game trail.
yeah, and it's not gonna, in many cases, it's not as clearly defined as the game trail, but you'll definitely find it. And especially if you spend a lot of time in the mountains, you're gonna know this, where you'll see, a faint trail all of a sudden intersects with the trail you're following, and that's usually the predator trail crossing the prey trail, and that's usually where the ambush point is. So the
Yeah.
the other thing, especially when it comes to the ambush style, which is basically laying a trap, waiting for the prey to come to you. It requires that nothing in the environment is different. Everything's a pretty stable thing. So, like in that Monster Quest episode, Sasquatch Attacks, there's the cabin that's been there for however many years. Well, everything's used to it. So when they show up and they're hiding in the cabin, all of a sudden they've changed, and now something comes out to confront them about it. And I think that's where a lot of like these videos where people are in cabins, or there's a couple of videos of people like on the Appalachian Trail, like in the trail huts, getting things thrown at them and noises and all this stuff. And the big thing I've noticed is it very much always comes from the uphill side. So I'd be willing to bet that the Sasquatch out there or whatever would definitely be following the predator trail, not the game trail. So I think, especially when you see all these people who put trail cams up looking for Sasquatch, they always do it on the prey trail, the game trail,
Yeah.
instead of the predator trail.
Well, even then, when I look at it, like a lot of those cams that they set up are on fire roads. Those aren't even, game trails. They're just
Well,
random paths that people use to hike.
well, in the fire roads, what's interesting about it is yes, have been several instances of footprints being spotted on the fire trail, but they're not like walking down it. They're usually going across it.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but yeah, I know it's just, yeah, when they put up their trail cams, they either put it on the parade trails or just put them on regular hiking paths, and it's like,
I mean,
no, you're really, yeah, it's like it's a 1 in a million chance to catch anything on that. So,
yeah, yeah, you've really got to pay attention to, and we've talked about this before, uh, not on podcast, but just between ourselves. Of if you were going to do a proper, expedition, if you will, to go search for a Sasquatch or something, you'd really want to go and it sounds funny to find the perfect area for this, but you're going to want to find a place that's going to have a reliable water source. So, like if you're doing it in say Northern California, you go to Klamath River area or some of these other areas that are freshwater, whether it's streams, rivers, whatever. Then you're going to want to find a spot that's got a nice slow down area because that's usually where like all the deer and the elk are going to want to come drink out of. They're not going to go drink out of like the fast raging torrent part of the river. So then you're going to want to, set up something, whether it's like tree stands or whatever. But at the same time, you're going to want to find that game trail and then go and I'm not saying walk off trail, get lost, take somebody who knows how to navigate the woods, but go off, get to that prey or the predator trail. And that's where you'd probably want to start setting up everything, whether it's your trail cams, tree blinds, whatever, even maybe like a lean-to or something to make a base of operations. Not on the trail itself, but a little bit ways above it. So that way you can observe the predators and hopefully not get spotted with them, like you would if you were sitting down on the game trail.
So.
It to me, I guess that's where, like, I have one of my uncles. He was very much a hop out of the Jeep with his rifle and I'm going to go hunting by walking 10 miles this direction kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with the spotting and stalking if you're doing it like you're the predator. But a lot of these people, you watch their thing on YouTube or they, it's on Discovery Channel or what, there's Travel Channel's got some, even like Animal Planet has some of these where you see them and they just bebop down a trail and you're like, you're walking down the game trail. You're never going to see anything until it tries to eat you,
No, yeah, that's it's like I've been stalked by panthers in North Carolina. It's a pretty weird feeling.
It is. And I've had a lot of friends because I was raised this way to look uphill when walking or hiking down a trail. And a lot of people like look at me like I'm crazy when I'm doing it. They're like, man, there's the river or the pond down there. Why aren't you checking that out, looking to see if there's stuff down there? And I'm like, well, because if something's going to try to eat me, it's going to come from uphill.
Yeah, they're the red barons of the animal world.
Yeah.
Come from the sun.
They come out of the sky and, yum, yum, yum. Next thing you know, you're some either mountain lion food or bear food or for all we know, I mean, if you go off like David Paulides Missing 411, maybe some of these people are getting grabbed off the game or grabbed by whether it's Sasquatch or something or Wolfman or whatever you want to call it is out there grabbing these things. Yeah. Man, bear, pig, yeah. And so I was always raised to look uphill because that's where the threats are. And for those of us who spend a lot of time in the woods anyway, we have a very, I guess that sixth sense that when you're being watched, when you're being followed, something's there, and you listen and there's no sound out there, but the sound of your own heartbeat, type moment, and your own breathing, and you just sit there and it's too quiet. You start looking around and you start watching uphill, and I've come across all sorts of stuff out in the woods. Like I've watched mountain lions when I was in California. Just happened to look up and there was a mountain lion bebopping along the hill.
Yep.
I've watched bears come down out of the hill. Been on, backcountry hiking, felt weird, something was watching me or whatever. Got myself in a little hidden hidey hole spot and watched a bear come down to the river. So, you when you're out there, this thing, you have that feeling. And I think it's, if you spend a lot of time in the cities, you may have a version of it for the city. People always talk about, oh, well, I felt like somebody was stalking me or something. And I feel there's that feeling when you're in the city. But I think the woods gives you that more, there's a lot more to that feeling. The dead silent, all the birds stop. The crickets, the bugs, everything stops and it's just too quiet. It's too quiet.
Too quiet.
Yeah. Get down, Charlie's in the woods, that super feeling you get when you're doing it. And I personally think that's kind of funny, but it's true. You get these feelings, and when you're in the woods, the biggest thing you can do is trust your instincts. In the cities, we are the biggest, baddest mother on the block, if you will. That's our domain. We rule the roost. But you walk into the woods, you're no longer the big bad guy on the block. You're just another food source.
Yeah. You in the predator's house now. Yeah.
Yeah. You in the wrong neighborhood if you don't know what you're doing is basically how to put it.
Yeah. So.
And I feel that way with Sasquatch. Like, all these people are like, well, I went into the woods and all I found was footprints, or I've been going out here for decades and I've never seen anything. And then you talk to the guy who's like, well, I'm a hunter. I hunt these woods every year and I have seen some stuff that you would not believe. And my grandfather, for decades, had a gold claim, and from the end of spring until the first snow, he'd be up in the mountains at the gold claim. And it wasn't until I came back from the Navy and I was talking about something, and he goes, well, the University of Wyoming did research on Bigfoot. And coming from my grandfather, who was an aircraft mechanic and seemed like the most sensible, no-nonsense kind of guy, to say, well, hey, they did this, and it included in me that, wait a minute, this guy who spends months alone in the woods in a camper, panning for gold and stuff, is researching Bigfoot. What does that say? Because that kind of makes me go, wait a minute, this very sensible person who wouldn't talk about it was researching Bigfoot on the back end. So there had to be something going on up there. And, I've spent years of my life up there with him. I can't honestly say I've ever seen anything apart from mountain lions, bears, and coyotes, and cows. But it makes you wonder when he was, he's this, he was like a first sergeant in the Air Force and all this stuff. So he's kind of a crusty guy. And for him to bring that up in regular conversation was very strange to me and kind of intriguing at the same time. Like, why was he researching this if he, maybe on the backside he believed there was something there or he saw something?
Yeah. Well, I think it also goes with, especially if you spend a lot of, especially him like that, a lot of time out in the woods, what, what areas feel like, what kind to expect. And when something's out of the ordinary, so, okay, something's off. So, especially when you come around to something that makes your hair stand on end, and everything and then you hear stories like, okay, Bigfoot or Sasquatch, well, same thing, obviously, man, bear, pig, whatever. This is like that. It makes you think. It's like, okay,
it's the chupa thingy, Griff.
Yeah, the chupa thingy. So, but so when you hear stories like that and you apply that to okay, well, I came across something, I have no idea what this was, and nothing I can do to explain it. You start to say, okay, maybe there is something.
Well, and that's where I've always kind of sat is with the hunters and any of us who have spent any amount of time in the woods, we know what we're looking at or what we're looking for. I mean, I was raised to track down, check out tracks, check for bear, check for, mountain lion, to look at all this stuff, to follow. I can honestly follow a deer trail for miles without even having shot the deer. I can follow its trail. That's how I was, you're raised when you're in a hunting family, how to track animals and stuff like that. So you know what you're looking at. You can tell, prints. You can tell, oh, well, that's a bear. I can see it from here. Or, oh, that's a mountain lion. That's cool. Or, hey, that's a bobcat. That ain't nothing. But if you're sitting there and all of a sudden something huge and big comes storming through the woods, runs past you while you're sitting there with your rifle and you're trying not to, make your brown, take your pants to being brown, you're going to know that, hey, this isn't something I normally see. You're going to call it out and go, okay, I just saw something. It's not what's out here normally. What is this? And that's where I sit when, people go, oh, well, there's no such thing. Then what are all these people seeing? I mean, I've had a chance to sit down with, some Bigfoot writers before, and I've talked to them and I go, well, hey, what do you think of the odds of this? Or what was it? I brought up talking about Dogman to one of them, and he goes, I don't 100% agree that there is a Dogman, but I'm willing to accept that there's chances it could be out there. Especially because there's stories of like tribes of dog-headed men that go all the way back to like Roman times.
Yeah, so it's Anubis warriors. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's the Anubis warriors. Somebody's bringing the Scorpion King. I can honestly sit there and go, can you? And I have, one of my good friends is a lawyer, and she goes, well, eyewitnesses don't mean anything. Because, yeah, some guy could walk in and rob a store, and you're going to get 4 different descriptions from him. And I go, well, that's taking it to the extreme. If you're saying, at the same token, we'll go, well, guys that are trained in observation skills obviously know what they're talking about and make great eyewitnesses. But Billy Bob here, who's buying a pack of Camels at the grocery store, saw some guy run in and rob the store, and he goes, well, he was wearing a ski mask. I couldn't tell you what he looked like. Well, all of a sudden, he's not a great witness. But you take Billy Bob out into the woods with his shotgun, and he'll be like, oh, man, look at that bear, You'll be like, what bear? And he'll be like, oh, that thing hiding behind the tree over there. Holy crap, there is a bear,
Yeah.
It's a matter of perspective on what you're taking for observational skills and eyewitnesses to certain things. Can you always trust the dudes coming out and saying, well, yeah, I saw Bigfoot and I dumped a magazine of 45 into it. And it just looked at me and went, yeah, whatever, and left. I mean, I don't know if I'd believe that. I'd be like, well, that's a heck of a story. I'll take your word for it, but I don't buy it. I'm not going to... That's along the probability of me sitting out hiking a trail and having a ham and cheese sandwich out on the trail and Bigfoot walking out looking at me like waving his hand going, give me the damn sandwich. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it might. It's like
that jerky commercial. The guy walks up to a bear and like kung fu fights the bear for the jerky.
Oh, that salmon commercial. Yeah, that smoked salmon commercial.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was smoked salmon. Yeah, that's just, I don't find it probable. Now, given that, yes, from a standing viewpoint, I would believe that a Sasquatch would be a Sasquatch, would be an omnivore, much like us. It's not going to be a vegetarian. It's not going to come out of the woods and tell you that eating that ham sandwich is so bad for the environment. But on the same, it's the hippie squatch. But on the same context, it's not going to sit there and only eat meat. I mean, we see this in nature. Even bears, which are a very much predatory animal, will sit down and eat a thing of berries.
Oh yeah, no. I think bears eat more fruits than meat. Really,
depends on what area they're in.
True.
Especially Rocky Mountain bears, especially black bears here, and grizzlies are very much berries. Huckleberries, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, whatever they can get out here, depending on the area. By Yellowstone and stuff like that, it's a lot of huckleberry, which makes them taste decently all right.
Huckleberry picnic baskets,
yeah. Up there getting some Starbucks coffee while waiting in line for their picnic baskets or whatever. But you got to ask yourself, at the end of the day, what makes you think that we have explored the woods, and what makes you think that just because you went into the woods one time makes you think you've seen everything?
Mm. Oh yeah, no, well, me being in the grand area of LA, uh,
There,
you can tell
no,
I'm not a city boy, but it's I haven't been in the woods for a long time, but as much as I used to be in, I still know I have not seen everything. I'm not even scratched the surface of seeing everything.
I wouldn't even begin to pretend that I've seen
Yeah.
everything. Um, you know, as the saying goes, all I know is that I don't know anything. Um, to believe that, oh yeah, well, I walked into the woods, and because I hiked 10 miles out here, I can tell you there's nothing out here. Well, for all you know, you walked past something and didn't even see it, and it just looked at you like, well, that guy's an idiot, and kept walking. Um, and I have no doubt that's happened. A couple hundred times. These Bigfoot researchers are out traipsing around, and Bigfoot's just sitting there watching them. Wow, those guys are dumb. I should eat that guy
Yeah.
in the back. You know?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, that goes to the thing. Is like with some of them. Actually, I've seen a lot of them that they would do that Yelp call. What is the point behind that? Like,
well, that
they're trying to like attract attention.
well, here's the thing: is when it comes to great apes in Africa, they use vocalizations to set territory and communicate.
Hmm.
They also, they break the branches and all this other stuff and move trees, which if you go through any of the stuff for Bigfoot lore is all a part of the Bigfoot lore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very much
they'll
a part
set
of that.
branches and things like yeah.
And this is actually where like the University of Wyoming researched on this was vocalizations. And
Mm.
they compared vocalizations, I don't remember which ones they got. They compared it to a whole bunch of other primates and other animals, and they could not find a match for it anywhere.
Yeah.
So that being stated, it makes you go, okay, well, if it's not a match to any known animal, it's got to be something that we won't acknowledge exists, or it exists. Most people have acknowledged it, but nobody's willing to stand up and say anything until they have the hard proof. And then that's where you fall into that whole, well, how come we never find bodies? Well, I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time in the woods, and I've never come across a bear skeleton.
Oh
I've come
yeah.
across deer. I've never come across a mountain lion skeleton. I've
Yeah.
never any predator I've never come across basically out in the woods unless I've
Yeah.
shot it like a coyote or something.
Yeah. No, I've came across a half decomposed bobcat once, but uh you know that it was kind of like in an odd, weird little place. So,
Yeah,
but no, yeah,
they're not.
it's like yeah, it's you're not gonna, especially predators, you're not going to find their skeletons.
Yeah, they're
So
exceptionally hard to find, and even they've done the how fast can a body deteriorate out in the woods, and it's like yeah, within a week it's almost gone.
yeah,
You know, so expecting to find this unless you go out and actually and there's parties on both sides of this fence where it's yeah, if we see it, let's shoot it and get it proved, and there's the other people who are going, well, no, we don't need to provide a body to prove it exists. We've got trail markings and video and sounds and all this. And to
mm,
be honest, I think everybody in the community is well aware that it's going to take a body to show up for science to go, yep, that's definitely a real thing.
oh no, yeah, it's what's the bird from Up? He found the skeleton, but they didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I got to bring back the live bird. So
Yeah, it's like it's basically like Up. It's an emu, basically. I think is what it
yeah, the Beast of
like
Paradise
the
Falls.
beast,
Yeah,
which, from my understanding, actually is a real bird species. I think.
uh,
I think it is an actual bird species.
yeah,
I don't think it's as big as they made it out in Up, but I think it is an actual species because Paradise Falls is again an actual place.
yeah,
Um, so it very much science is that way. If you don't have the actual thing, they're gonna call shenanigans on you. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish science was actually very much the hey, people are saying this thing exists. Let's actually go look for it instead of oh, you're seeing this thing? It's your imagination.
Yeah. Every single hunter does shrooms before he goes out into the woods.
Exactly. They're all out there, pot farmers out there testing the product, and next thing you know, they're seeing Sasquatch. I can't believe, there's a part of me that will probably never believe that is even a remote idea to things. I know a lot of guys that when I was a younger man would go do shrooms into stuff and go and then hiking in the woods. None of them ever came back and said, dude, I saw Sasquatch. No, they would all come back and go, dude, that was such a cool hike. There were some blue flowers and they were awesome. They were, oh, dude, I saw Sasquatch. What was he doing out there? Oh, he was smoking a pack of Marlboro Reds and drinking some Colt 45.
That was just a really hairy dude. Yeah.
That was just Billy Bob out his deer stand. It's okay. Don't mind him. I've never met people that went out and did this stuff, but it goes along the same lines of what in Africa you look at. There's so many examples of science messing this up royally. Biologists and zoologists messing this up. Silverback gorillas. They for decades went, oh, there's no such thing, you crazy savages down there in Africa don't know what you're talking about. And then someone walked in there and went, oh my God, look at the size of that gorilla. My favorite one is in the Pacific Northwest on the Olympic Peninsula. There was a ground squirrel that they said was extinct for like 100 years. And then they found it because somebody happened to go outside at night and they realized this ground squirrel was nocturnal. And they'd been looking for it during the day. And you're like, you guys didn't know it was nocturnal the first time you studied it? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, no, it was like the
Architeuthis goes into that category too.
Yeah.
Architeuthis is the giant squid, for those who don't know. It was originally discovered and dissected and was put into science journals. And then 20 years after it was discovered, they said it's extinct. And then it went for decades. I remember in the 90s, there was a movie on Sci-Fi Channel about giant squids attacking like the coast of California or something. And everyone thought it was a funny little joke movie thing. And then they finally went, yeah, the Architeuthis is still alive, guys. And you went, oh, crud.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like that frog, Arizona? One of those southern Midwest states. But, they said it was like extinct for decades as well, and then a rain, like a particularly heavy rain came by during one of the El Ninos, and they all started popping out of the ground. They're like, oh, I guess it just hibernates.
Yeah, it's insane science really has their priorities wrong, and where they go is they go where the money tells them to go. They're not going to come to me and go, hey, we think your idea for researching that Sasquatch is a great idea. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it without getting paid. They're not going to do that.
If you had about like $500 million, then they might come to you. But yeah.
I mean, if Elon Musk rolled up to my house and said, here's $2 billion, go find me a Sasquatch. Money, Elon, I'm on it. But otherwise, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. As Ghostbusters Dan Aykroyd pleasantly put it, it's like, you haven't worked in the private sector. I have. They expect results.
Exactly. It's very much results based, and those results have to be what you want them to be is the other key thing. Yeah. So there, I know there's a bunch of conspiracy theories of, well, the government knows it exists. They're doing everything to keep Sasquatch under the wraps. Out of all the things I think the government has that they're running behind the scenes, I think hiding a giant, part of the Homo family here in the woods the plains, the swamps of the United States and North America in general, I don't think that's going to happen, especially because there's apparently variants of this thing all over the place. I think it's the Yowie down in Australia. There's the midget one, the orang pendek, that's in the Philippines or something like that. And then you have, the abominable snowman, the Yeti, Russia's got all these stories of things. So they're all over the place. I don't think the American government is running around trying to hide this. And I don't think there's a one world government trying to hide it. I just think it's that until we have a true, tangible source, we'll never actually get the truth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, yeah, that's just, yeah, generally how it is. Is like if you just look at science throughout the history, it's generally regarded as, well, depending on point of view, blasphemy, uh, witch, witchcraft. Like, was it microbiology was considered witchcraft for the longest time? Uh,
She turned me into a newt.
Yeah. So
Got
where
better.
germs were caused by bacteria and everything like that, not bad air, things like that. So it progresses. It's just that science walks that tightrope of being able to keep an open mind, really.
Well, it's whoever's paying you is going to tell you what to do. And
Yeah,
I
that's
give props to all of the guys that are, the scientists that are shucking conventions and doing their own thing. The guys that are out there doing this stuff, props to them. They're not making a whole big living unless they're out writing books constantly. They're out, researching constantly. And I can imagine there's probably stuff they're doing on the side to help raise money. But a lot of this stuff I can't imagine they're making tons of money on. So,
yeah.
Without some huge financial backing, it's kind of hard to get it going. I mean, honestly, I think an expedition would probably take 3 months, would be my guess, to
Minimum.
get at least
Yeah.
to get something.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, I mean, you go to a spot. The Klamath River in California is great for that. I'm sure there's plenty of places in the Cascades up in Washington that'd be perfect. Around like Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier would be great spots probably.
Yeah. Olympics, depending on where in the Olympics, it gets some interesting. Although the Olympics are pretty well hiked, so there's not too much around there. That place up in British Columbia, the kind of peninsula area in between the river and the Sound. I forget the name of it.
Well, if you go, Victoria Island is huge. Apparently, a lot of tribesmen say in that area. The First Nations tribes up there will say there's something over there. Don't mess with it.
Yeah, I just know that there's like this one little trifecta up there that like bunch of weird stuff and disappearances. Like missing 411 there is does a lot of segments on that area.
Yeah, there's especially around Rainier up there for missing 411 has about a bunch of stuff. But there's that place that I don't remember where it is. It starts like with an N. It'll come to me after I'm done recording everything.
Of course.
But I've seen several guys go on expeditions there and groups going on expeditions there. And, they keep falling into that same thing of, well, hey, let's keep following this game trail. Stop following the game trail, guys. Look for that predator trail, and that's where you want to set up. And, I think, and this is where I sit on my plan, if I was to ever get the money to do this sort of thing, to prove it exists, I would go find a spot that I consider perfectly. I would research the hell out of it for first, get the topographic maps, give me the satellite maps of it, walk it, GPS track the heck out of that whole area, mark spots I think would be decent, bring it back, build a team. And not a huge team. I'm not saying I want a 50-man team. It'd be like a 4-man team. Yeah. Somebody who's good with, monitoring cameras, stuff like that, who will sit at the base camp. A couple people to sit out in tree stands and rock and roll like that. People and one person to command and control the whole area. Yeah. But
you would need at least one person that knows how to blaze a trail, though.
Well, blazing trails is kind of easy, but at the same token, once you get to like the area in most places, especially if you hit like late summer and you're on a river, you can find a nice little sand bed to get choppered into or something and go from there. And, you're going to want to build it if you can, build a lean-to or something and make that your command headquarters thing. Put up, find the predator trail, put your deer stands up there, set up all this stuff around there, then leave. leave for like 3 weeks. Don't touch nothing. Don't even think about coming back. Just leave. And the whole reason for this is that get everything in that area used to that stuff being there.
Yeah.
If you set it all up and you sit there with it, ain't nothing coming around. You created all this noise and havoc, did all this stuff. It don't want to be anywhere near you. So leave. Let the natural environment settle back down to all this new stuff. And then on that third week, maybe not get choppered in on that time. Maybe, hike in there. And since everything's used to all that stuff being there, then you can, set up, be quiet, get to the spots and just monitor and watch. Check your trail cams that you set up. Even nowadays, you got those Wi-Fi cameras you can set up. Put all those around. And then just sit there for like two weeks. And I would have the feeling you're going to get data.
Yeah.
I can't tell you whether it's great data or it's going to be the best data of your life, but you're probably going to get something. So that would be my personal plan. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to add to it.
No, I'd say that's pretty solid. Yeah, because I haven't watched two. I really need to sit down and watch more of them. But the explorer guys trying to find things like the documentaries. But the ones I've seen, they're probably not the best ones. But it's usually people that they're not used to being in the woods. They stick to the trails. They kind of come off as not exactly knowing what they're doing. So yeah, I'd say get the team together, but I think the entire team at least needs to be used to being in the woods.
Very much so, because I mean, I've watched quite a few, and they seem skittish, to be honest.
Yeah,
they're like, you want the guys that when they're out there and they hear a woodpecker, they're not going to be like, "Oh my God, that's wood knocking. Do you hear it?"
Yeah,
like, no, that's a woodpecker, dude. Leave it alone.
Yeah, yeah. Or it's like, oh yeah, and I've seen one where like, oh, you hear all this stuff and you listen to it. I'm like, it's rutting season, guy, man. Come on.
Yeah. Look at the time you're out here. It's the ruts going on, dude. That's a couple of deer trying to beat each other up to get the sweet herd of ladies. It's very much take people who know the area or are very familiar with it or know what it's like to be in the woods. And especially, take someone who's a wilderness EMT with you, and is, take a team of people that are multiple tasked. Expect to be out there. Expect things to not go the way you want it to. Always, I guess the military instilled this in us is backup for a backup for a backup. Oh, well, the wireless cameras aren't working, so we'll use the trail camera. Well, if the trail camera, all the batteries die, what are we going to do then? Well, bring more batteries.
Yeah.
How are we going to communicate? Well, we'll use a string and a can for last resort. How about that?
Yeah.
What happens if we got an emergency? Well, almost all the, high dollar GPS units now send out a satellite signal that says, "Oh my God, come help me." These are things that, as everyone goes, "Oh, there's so much logistics that going into it." And you go, no, this is simple stuff that most of us who go into the woods on the regular think about. How am I going to communicate? What happens if I'm injured in the woods? All right, well, I need to have at least a basic understanding of first aid to be able to get myself back out of here. What happens if I get stuck in a spot and I need help and assistance? Well, my GPS unit that I've got will allow me to send texts up to the satellite. And those 6 people that I said, "Hey, I'm going out into the woods. Here's the address to check on me." We'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden on their Google Earth or whatever, it'll pop up and it'll go, "Oh, for the love of Pete, send someone to help me." And they'll be like, "Oh my God, here's his GPS location. Go get him, search and rescue."
Oh, yes. Oh, that reminds. It's kind of an unrelated story. It reminds me where I was hiking up in the Olympics. I think I told this one to you before, but we're hiking up. There was me and 2 other guys, and we're walking along this cliff face, and it's about a 50-60 foot drop, just straight drop. Guy in front, he slips and almost goes over the edge. He kind of grabs himself and pulls him back up, and me and the other guy kind of like laugh, look at each other. It was like first thought that went through our heads was, "Oh crap, he has the car keys."
Yeah, exactly. It's not you got to think things that we take for granted in this modern day. but really are there to help us, and they take care of so many logistics. And oh, well, what are you going to do for food for 2 weeks? I'm on a river. I'm going to fish.
Yeah, bring a fishing pole.
I'm gonna fish. I'm gonna, I'm gonna set up a trout line. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I'm in the woods. I'm gonna look for, I was raised to go around. Okay, well, here's the mushrooms that aren't gonna kill me. Here's, oh, here's this leaf that if you chew on it, it tastes like Granny Smith apples. Here's this. Here's that.
Yeah. So
I'm
that's
gonna,
why
I'm gonna,
always.
I'll supplement whatever else I pack in with those freeze dried foods and MREs. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll usually bring a low caliber pistol for squirrels and rabbits.
yeah, if you bring like a 22, I mean, and even myself personally, if I'm going into the woods, knowing there's bears, mountain lions, all this stuff, I'm probably gonna bring a pistol of at least a 45.
Oh yeah, the 45 is generally for defense because you're not going to kill a bear or mountain lion, but you might be able to make them think that you're too much trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's guys out there that are going to be like, why not a 9mm? There's more ammo in it. Because the amount of times I've seen, dude killed a bear with a 9mm, and you read it, and he goes, I had to dump 3 magazines into that bear.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd had a 45 sunshine after the first mag, that bear would have probably thought twice.
Yeah. Yeah, because the first 2 magazines of that 9mm just pissed him off.
Yeah, that just made it angry, And that goes into that whole caliber debate, and I don't want to get into that. That's just too much. So. But it's, you hear things like, "Oh yeah, I put a magazine of 40 Hydra Shock into this thing, and it kept running." I would too.
Well, the thing is, with a bear too, you could puncture and hit the heart dead on first shot. That bear will still run for another 60 feet or so.
Yeah. You aren't going to stop that bear. And if it's towards fall and that bear is nice and fat, good luck on getting anything through that thing.
So,
but
generally,
it's very much know your environment, know what you expect, know your hazards, and plan accordingly. And it's for those of us who plan hiking trips or go camping, it's another day in the life. But I think it's something that a lot of people who are the armchair investigators, if you will, they sit, I'm in, oh, I live in Dallas, and this is what I think you should be doing out there in the Rocky Mountains, or in the... Dude, you don't know what we do here in the Rocky Mountains. We're a different breed of beasts. I can't say the same thing works over in the Appalachian area. I've lived over there a few times, but I, didn't go, I'm going to go bebopping down the Appalachian Trail here in Maine. I was little at the time. I didn't do it. I didn't think about it. So what happens in different areas in different parts of the country are always going to be this way. They're going to be different. They're going to have different points of views. You're just going to have to live with it and take it on for whatever it is. But prepping to do this stuff, and I'm not talking like doomsday prepper where I got to have 5,000 rounds of pistol ammo on me at all times. I'm saying plan accordingly, take the proper stuff, and if you think methodically and think like a hunter, think like you're the predator, you're more likely to find what you're looking for. It isn't so much about sitting around stealthy, being, super secret squirrel. No one will ever find me up here if I hang out in my little hut. No, it's think like a predator, be stealthy, and patience. These guys who do this expedition of, I'm going out tonight to look for Sasquatch. Come back in the morning. Well, I didn't find nothing, so we're going back to the city.
The ones I've seen, the longest they stayed out was maybe a week. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. You're not going to find anything that way.
Yeah,
you'll take it like this. Field researchers in Africa are out there for months.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? Wild America, Marty Stauffer, he said, to set up a perfect shot in a blind takes weeks. To even get to get 5 minutes of video footage, it takes weeks of setting up a blind, leaving the blind alone, sneaking back to the blind, getting in the blind so nothing knows you're there, and then filming and hoping you catch something.
Yeah, lay there
weeks. It's a patience game, and it's a thinking game. And I think if we saw a lot more people playing those two games, I guarantee you it doesn't make for great footage to upload to YouTube and go, I caught Bigfoot. 17 hours of dudes sitting there drooling. It doesn't make great footage, I know, But at the same time, it's that patience that's going to pay off in the end, in my view. Not the, I'm going to go out here, traipse around the woods, and the spot and stalk maneuver, if you will. Because if you're walking down the game trail like all these guys do, you ain't going to spot nothing, but you're going to get stalked.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on the whole idealism there. I think for anybody who's made it this far, and if you've got your 2 cents that you'd like to throw in, let us know what you think. We'd be interested in hearing other people's thoughts, ideas, or if you got any stories you want to tell us about, what's happened with you out in the woods. Definitely, if you're on our YouTube, you could leave comments below, or you could probably email us. The email will be in the notes, the show notes. But I think we've had a pretty good discussion for today. We will start wrapping things up here on this end. Do you have any final thoughts there, buddy?
No, not much. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. Kind of feel the same way. If you live in Southern California, I'm sorry. And if you're ever thinking about coming out here, don't.
All right. Well, I think for both of us, thank you for everybody that's come out and listened to us, and hope you all have an amazing day. And we will talk to you on the next episode of The Wilds of Reality.